Let's get right to it because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Many people lambast the Star Destroyer, the Imperial-class Star Destroyer specifically, though other vessels of that lineage generally, as a poorly designed flex on the part of the Imperial Navy. Many reasons are given, most of which kind of suck, and we're going to go over some of the more egregious ideas about the deficiencies of the Star Destroyer in this video. So strap in, because this will probably be kind of a longer one. So like I say, we're going to get right into it, because, we have a lot to cover. I've covered all this. I'm just repeating myself to drag out time. The first issue that we're going to look at, issue said with air quotes, is that a Star Destroyer has badly placed weapons. Especially those guns around the superstructure. The 8 guns arranged along the broadside, or the 8 mounts arranged along the broadside. Now, at an initial glance, these guns do seem badly placed. More on the rest of the guns in a moment, as only one can fire directly forward, and were the Star Destroyer a traditional battleship sailing on the water, it would be a very inefficient design. So what? A Star Destroyer is not a dreadnought battleship fighting in the North Sea in the First World War. It's a massive, space-based vessel which has to take the space in front of it, behind, along the sides, and above and below into account when considering firing angles. Furthermore, let's say that a target, a Mon-Cal star cruiser, approaches directly forward where you can only bring your 2 foremost turrets to bear. Well, then you know what you do? You depress your bow a few degrees to let you fire the rest of your guns over the others in a semi-super firing arrangement. The same applies if a ship is behind you. And along your sides, you have 4 guns freely available, gun turrets. Put simply, the arrangement of a Star Destroyer's main guns, while not ideal for every circumstance, is a generally good enough all-around balance of firepower in all directions. Sure, there are ways to make it work better, but I always assumed that they were placed the way they were because of technical and internal limitations. In other words, there's an explanation for it, we just don't see it, because we're not involved in the design development process of the Star Destroyer. And as for the rest of the guns placed around the ship, well, they're actually very well placed. A key advantage of a dagger-shaped design is that your side-mounted guns have very good levels of fire. They're capable of firing along broad angles and cover most of the ship. Nothing bad around the arrangement there. And I think that's pretty well covered. The arrangement in the main guns isn't ideal, but is perfectly serviceable and probably has in-universe reasons behind their placement. The guns mounted on the outer edge actually have a very good location. Next up in our list, we have the idea that Star Destroyers are somehow inefficient monstrosities that try to perform too many roles at once. Acting as a carrier, cruiser, battleship, troop transport, and planetary assault ship, all in one, makes the ship terrible at all roles. And here I kind of agree partially. I mean, a ship built expressly for a single purpose, don't get me wrong, will almost always be better at that role than a ship with more multi-role capability. But at the same time, building a navy where every ship in the fleet is built to perform just a single purpose will almost always result in serious problems. The main issues with such a doctrine are that you need very large numbers of ships. If you're trying to blanket the galaxy in a fleet presence of more than one ship every quadrant, Star Trek, then you need to build dedicated cruisers, escorts, patrol ships, fighters, carriers, battleships, planetary assault ships, medical vessels, troop transport, sensor picket ships. The list goes on, and I don't have the breath for it. So instead, the Empire, in a rather sensible move, designed the Imperial class and a few other smaller designs like the 546 and Vindicator heavy cruiser line to serve well enough in several roles to get a good value for your money and ensure that there was one ship that could do whatever was needed in relative proximity. The Empire accepted that the Imperial class would not be the best in any of these roles compared to dedicated ships. It would not be as effective in any role as purpose-built designs, but at the same time, it would be good enough for most scenarios. And if the ship wasn't, then just call in reinforcement. After all, the Empire likely thought they could get away with this multi-role design because it's not like they were expecting to be fighting a peer-level opponent in a galaxy-spanning conflict. They had already done that, they had taken over the galaxy, and they had transitioned from Democratic Republic to Absolutist Empire. All they had to do was police and hold the galaxy. The whole rebellion thing was just kind of an unfortunate, I say accident, but they were really asking for it, an unfortunate occurrence for the corrupt people in power, let's say. And next up in line, rapid fire, we have the often parroted idea that the Empire built the Imperial class in line with the Tarkin Doctrine. For those not in the know, the Tarkin Doctrine is one of the worst thought-out elements of the old expanded universe. It basically said that the Empire should design all of its ships with the express idea that they should instill the maximum amount of fear possible to all who saw it, and that this design idea should be placed ahead of any other aspects of the ship's design, including its combat effectiveness, including its habitability, including its endurance. Basically, this is not great. This doctrine is one of many older parts of the expanded universe, which I completely ignore as it just makes no sense. Either from the point of view of somebody in the universe itself, or, if you can think about it for more than 5 seconds, about its real-world implications outside. Building ships to look menacing is not a viable design doctrine, as it inevitably results in a badly compromised fighting ship. Take notes, French pre-dreadnought designers. I'm not showing pictures, but look them up. They're monstrosities, and I love them. And it's not something anyone would ever do. Joke aside about the French. I assume this idea was tossed around as a theory, largely to make the Empire seem more evil to 12-year-olds reading the comics or playing early LucasArts games. So my counter-argument to this, and a couple of other issues, is that it's stupid, makes no sense, and can be ignored, or should be ignored, or I will ignore it, and you do you. Not the best counter to something, I admit, but, you can't have the all-singing, all-dancing, airtight points all the times. Yet another point. Are you getting tired of these? I mean, I'm kind of getting tired of reading them, but, this is like the 7th take, because I'm bad at recording, so this will be our second to last, because, well, also my fingers hurt after all this typing by this point, and I didn't want to carry on, and I'm lazy. Anyway, the point is that the bridge of the Star Destroyer is badly placed. And I mean, where it is in the tower exposed. At first glance, it could be made an argument that being all exposed in the upper surface there, it would be better to place the bridge deep inside the ship, where it could be, protected and safe by all of the ship above and below it. But if you look at a cross-section of a Star Destroyer, Google it yourself, this is homework alongside the French ships, then you will see clearly that the ship its insides are jam-packed with reactors, thrusters, hyperdrives, hangars, cargo bays, and weapons emplacements. There's been a lot of lists in this video. Most of the crewed areas, in fact, their quarters and working areas, are actually located in the upper superstructure. The bridge could be put there, of course, and it might seem like it would be better protected if it was, but really the bridge is located where it is for a very good reason. Its location actually makes quite a lot of sense. Keep in mind that, and the reason is that it doesn't need to be anywhere else. It doesn't need to be buried. Keep in mind that shields in Star Wars are ubiquitous and commonplace, even aboard civilian ships, and they can be fairly good. This suggests that they're fairly reliable in service, and if they're about to shut down and leave you exposed, you probably have bigger problems on your hands than your bridge being targeted. And it's likely you've had time to leave before that happened. You're not just going to stand there and get reports that your bridge shields are at 10%, 9%, 8%, and just think, oh no, you're going to be thinking, I'm the captain and I'm going to leave. Who's going to question you? As a secondary feature, the bridge being located where it is would help reduce input lag from the ship's sensors, as well as making it generally more secure because the sensor input has less distance to travel. In fact, the ship's main sensor arrays are actually right up there on the same tower as the bridge. Some sources say these are shield generators and they are the only shield generators for the ship. That's a whole other issue. It's stupid. They're very clearly radar domes like you see in the real world, or some kind of sensor array. That's what they're supposed to be. I will fight on this hill. Not die on this hill. I'll leave before it gets that bad, but you know. Also, having your bridge, rather, in a less than ideally perfect place is something commonplace even today. A large supertanker having its bridge way at the back, that's not an ideal location for steering the ship, but it's done like that for a good reason. And that is, you want as much space as possible for fuel. It's possible that on a Star Destroyer, you have your bridge in that weird space way up and exposed because you didn't want to waste room in the main hull for that. You wanted fuel and reactors, and by this point you should get the gist. I feel like I've made my argument. Whether it's good or not is up to you. And finally, perhaps we have the issue that irks me the most regarding the Imperial Star Destroyer. And that is that the Imperial Star Destroyer, at least the second variant of the class, lacks any form of flak batteries or any ability to fend off starfighters. You know, the key cornerstone of Rebel Alliance doctrine. This idea stems from the same place that says the Star Destroyer is designed to instill fear, first and foremost, on all who see it, and is meant to show the Empire as a bunch of incompetent goons and mustache-twirling villains. Obviously, this is nonsense, and I don't think it needs much more in the way of counter-argument against it. It's stupid, the idea that you would be facing a rebellion using starfighters. You would take losses, and you would think, clearly we need to remove the flak guns on our ships, without putting anything better in the place. Makes no sense, and even if you want the Empire to be a bunch of idiot SS cosplayers in space, which arguably they should be, they would still be smart enough to think to put some flak batteries on the stinking ship. And we'll see throughout the movies that the Imperial class is more than capable of firing on small starfighters with accuracy. It doesn't take a genius to figure this kind of stuff out, and it irks me. And that is a somewhat, air quotes, brief look at some of the more major issues commonly brought up about the Imperial Star Destroyer. Some of them have fairly easy explanations as to why they make no sense, and for some other issues the whole problem is based on a cromulent theory from some odd writing choices made in the 90s. Well, that's it for this video. I could go on, but I kinda want to keep the video somewhat short-ish. If you like the video, then please do the liking, commenting, and subscribing thing proper YouTubers are always telling you to do. That would help, I'm sure. I should also mention this video is brought to you by my Patreons. You can join them in a link below. You can check it out to see if that's something you'd be interested. You know, if you feel like supporting me monetarily so I can make more videos like this in the future. Because more money equals more content, right? Maybe? I don't know. I don't understand how this YouTube thing works. If not, then that's cool as well. I'm not suggesting what you should do with your money. Who says I want it anyway? I mean, I did ask for it. Anyway, cutting this ramble short, regardless of what you do, have a nice day.